The text came in at 7:13 a.m., right between my first sip of coffee and my last ounce of patience. I hadn't even finished loading the dishwasher when my phone buzzed and lit up with Jasmine's name. It wasn't the timing that got me. It was the tone, cold, mechanical. Family meeting, Sunday, 4 p.m. Be respectful. Be on time. No. Hi. No. We need to talk. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji to soften the blow, just a command from my wife. After 3 days of stone silence since. I told her I wasn't signing over my inheritance. I stared at the message for a long moment, letting the weight of what it meant settle into my bones. That wasn't a conversation invitation. That was a trap. Dressed up in polite words like sugar on a knife's edge, and still, I was going not because I owed them anything, but because sometimes you have to walk into the lion's den. And just to remind everyone, you're not a lamb, Jasmine and I had been unraveling slowly. Ever since Grandpa Hart passed and left his entire estate personal and business, to me. Not to us. To me. And she couldn't hide her disappointment. Not for a second. The begging came first, then the arguments. Then the silence. I thought that would be the end of it. I underestimated her family's ability to orchestrate theater. Sunday came, with the kind of thick humidity that coats your skin before you even get out of the car. Her parents' house looked the same as it always did, like a photo from a magazine no one actually reads. Clean, symmetrical bricks. Roses trimmed too. Neat to be natural. A stone fountain that hadn't worked since 2018 but still managed to look expensive. 2 pristine black SUVs gleamed in the driveway, like they'd just driven themselves out of a showroom, but it wasn't the outside that mattered. It was what waited inside. I parked across the street and sat there for a minute. Engine ticking. In the summer heat. Palms tight against the steering wheel. There was no curiosity in me. Just confirmation. I already knew how this would play out. They'd try to dress it up in concern, maybe wrap it in a few phrases about what's fair for everyone. But I knew what they wanted. They wanted what wasn't theirs. What was never promised to them. What they hadn't earned. I walked up the path with slow, deliberate steps, listening to the sound of my shoes on the polished stone like it might give me the rhythm I needed. To stay calm. Jasmine opened the door before I could knock. Her expression was too smooth. Her smile too curated. "Malik," she said, soft, like we hadn't spoken in a week. "Glad you made it." She stepped aside. I didn't say a word. Inside, the air was too cold. Like they were trying to make the place feel sterile, like a boardroom instead of a home. Everyone was already seated in the living room. Just like a courtroom. Her father, Desmond, sat dead center in his armchair, the unspoken judge of the day. He wore that same smug, seasoned look he always did, the one that said he thought he was smarter than everyone in the room by default. Her mother, Lorraine, perched on the couch like a Victorian ghost wrapped in pearls, her expression carefully arranged into concerned elegance. Jasmine's sister, Talia, and her husband Reed sat to the right, hands folded, eyes darting. All of them were dressed like this was brunch, and not an ambush. And then I saw them. 2 strangers. Tailored suits, briefcases beside them, notepads, open, pens poised. They didn't smile, didn't introduce themselves. They just looked at me like they were expecting a signature, and maybe a little resistance to spice up their Sunday. That's when I knew this wasn't just a family meeting. I wasn't the guest. I was the agenda. 2. It's not about taking. It's about preserving what he meant to all of us. She made eye contact for the first time. Her expression flickered, not quite guilt, but maybe hesitation. Reed just sat there, arms crossed, eyes trained on me like he couldn't believe I hadn't crumbled yet. Desmond leaned forward finally, elbows on his knees, hands clasped in a fatherly pose that felt about as authentic as a campaign commercial. "What you've inherited, son, was built with family sacrifice," he said, low and firm, like he was giving a eulogy for my independence. "You think your grandfather did it alone? He built that company with our lives woven into it, with our time, our support." He looked at me like he expected some kind of gratitude. What we're asking for is a reflection of that history. But Desmond wasn't there when I was a kid. standing on a step stool, helping Grandpa tally receipts on Sunday nights while the rest of the family stayed home watching cable. He didn't pour concrete with us that summer. We couldn't afford contractors. He wasn't there when I showed up at the warehouse after school, trying to prove I could run a shift before I was old enough to vote. He didn't revise the safety codes. He didn't stay up revising supply reports. Jasmine wasn't there either. She didn't care about the business until they named me. I looked back down at the paper. I could feel the room tighten as I stayed silent. Like they thought maybe I was considering it, that I might just break. They didn't know me at all. Jasmine reached for the pen and gently slid it across the table again. "Please," she said, like it was the final act in a love story. "We can end this quietly. No tension, no mess, just agreement." I leaned back in the chair and looked around the room. "You've all got good lines. Did you take turns rehearsing, or was there a group script?" My voice came out calm, almost amused. I especially liked Legacy and Unity, very on brand. Desmond's eyes narrowed. "You think this is a game?" I smiled slowly. "No, I think it's a scam, and you're not even subtle about it." Mr. Braxley shifted uncomfortably, perhaps realizing I wasn't as pliable as advertised. "Mr. Hart," he began, "this agreement was designed to avoid conflict. If you decline, it could create long-term tension, financial disputes, possible challenges." "There's no legal basis for a challenge," I replied, eyes on him. "Grandpa's will is solid. Notarized, registered. He didn't leave it to the family. He left it to me. And I'm not distributing it like Halloween candy just because you're all offended by his decision." Lorraine exhaled sharply. "You're letting pride cloud your judgment." "No," I said, standing slowly. "I'm letting clarity replace naivety." Jasmine's mask slipped for a second. "You're being stubborn, Malik." "Stubborn?" I echoed. "You've been pressuring me for weeks, calling it hours like you didn't ghost Grandpa's birthday 5 years straight. You're here with lawyers before you've even mourned him properly. And I'm the stubborn one?" She looked wounded. "You're twisting everything. I love you. I just want us all to move forward together." "No," I said. "You want to cash out what someone else built, and you thought you could smile your way into it." I walked toward the door, feeling the heat rise in the room behind me. Desmond's voice followed me like a whip. "If you leave now, you're making this adversarial." I paused at the archway and turned. "It was adversarial the moment you brought lawyers. I'm just treating it honestly," and then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a speech. I just left the tea on the table and the pen untouched, because this wasn't about emotion anymore. It wasn't about fairness or family. It was about ownership, and they'd forgotten whose name was on the deed. I let the silence